thank you all for joining me once again as we take a look at exploring some of the wonderful and amazing content available through Primal Pictures. Today we'll be taking a look at some of the functional anatomy and therapy content, specifically jumping over into real-time functional anatomy, where we'll explore some of the gross motor movements and biomechanics of the human body, as well as take a look at some of those all-important goniometer movements. We'll go ahead and start things off by first taking a look at our different menu options. Firstly, we have our different functional animations, which have been subdivided regionally in order to help make things a bit easier. Further, as we scroll along, we get each of those different gross motor movements, which allow us to visualize the various muscles involved in each of these specific gross motor movements for the musculoskeletal system. For today, let's go ahead and select jogging. Down below, we have our little menu bar, and some of these features may seem quite familiar for those of you who have used 3D real-time, specifically the feature of ghost and hide. But before we discuss those, over here at our little menu bar, with these 3 dots, this allows you to customize your animation. Now you're able to adjust the speed, apply or deactivate the activation colors, as well as loop your animation. And if we go ahead and play this, now we can see the action of jogging. And if I pause this animation at any point, what I'm able to do is interact with any one of these particular muscles, very similarly to what we have over in 3D real time. There are those different rollover labels that do persist, and that'll provide you with the name for that associated structure. Now, if I go and select the sartorius and simply ghost that structure, and similarly, let's go ahead and remove the ITB. Now, as this animation plays, we're able to then now better visualize some of those deeper underlying structures after we've ghosted and hid those different muscle groups. Next, let's go ahead and jump over into one of the different regional movements. For today, I think we should go ahead and jump over into taking a look at extension and flexion of the head and cervical spine. Now, it is quite important for students focusing on physiotherapy and occupational therapy being able to translate this information towards a more clinical or practical standpoint. Let's go ahead and play our animation and take a look at some of those different movements for flexion and extension. Now, being able to accurately assess the exact muscle groups that are involved in these particular actions when evaluating a patient following injury is essential. And this is where students are able to better visualize some of those deeper underlying structures. And once again, if we simply go ahead and ghost that structure, now we're able to take a look at some of those deeper underlying muscles. And if we completely hide that structure, we can then engage with the anterior scalene, middle scalene, as well as take a look at some of the levator scapulae, which are involved in this particular movement. Next, let's jump over to our second menu option, where we have the all-important goniometer movements. Let's jump over into lateral flexion of the spine, or in this case, the cervical spine, and loop our video once again, and just slightly decrease our activation speed. As you're able to see, once again, we have the option of either removing or leaving our activation colors active, as well as disabling the goniometer movements. But we'll go ahead and keep that for this purpose. Once again, as I pause this animation, we're then able to see those exact muscles engage during this particular movement, as well as the normal angle of movement at that particular section for this animation. And if I go ahead and complete this movement, we're then able to see the normal range or angle of motion specific to this movement. Now, once again, as I mentioned beforehand, it is critical for physiotherapists and occupational therapists to have a baseline understanding about the normal range of motion for each of these different muscle groups when first assessing a patient following injury. Next, let's take a look and select flexion of the cervical spine. For the next setting, let's go ahead and open our pencil and ruler icon. Now this is where you're able to add any pins and labels into any particular structure. So let's go ahead and simply add a freestanding text box. As we can see, we have the frontal bone. Let's go ahead and take a look at drawing our circle to put a bit of focus on any particular structure. And next, we're able to take a simple snapshot of this particular image. Now, unfortunately, this only provides us with a still 2D rendering. And this is where I would highly advise that you go ahead and perform a screen recording of this particular animation, and that'll then allow you to incorporate this content into your later study notes. Next, you're simply able to share this information as a link. And lastly, we have a navigational trackpad that allows you to adjust and move your 3D model to your liking. I hope you all enjoyed some of the wonderful and amazing content that we explored in the real-time functional anatomy title. I implore you to go ahead and explore some of this content at your own leisure as you make learning come alive with Primal Pictures.